to the No Invite Podcast. Yeah.
Season 4, The Process.
Bring me back, No Invite Podcast, Season 4, The Process. You know who I am. We got our resident mental health specialist. This is the best way I can describe it. If I can describe it any other way, let me know. But we got Britt in the building.
Hello.
Yes. And this is episode 124. We're moving and grooving. We're going to kid y'all with 2 episodes this week because you know what? Sometimes it's needed. You know, sometimes we have to deliver the message on time. You know, we're not Amazon, but we try to be. You feel me? When it comes to bringing you this message at a timely thing. And you know already our good friend Britt has her segment on the show. And hold on a second. Before we kick that off real quick, we have a pleasant surprise. Hot Mama said she was going to be able to drop in, and here she is right now. Give us a second, people. Maybe we might need to adjust for some audio issues, but I think she got it though. She's a pro at this shit. This is what she does. You know, she's a fellow podcast professional. You there?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. All right, fire. So look, that was pretty seamless. You know, you came right on time. We're about to just start the conversation. Today is the ABCs of Therapy with Britt, and of course, you know, there's a lot. We're on to the letter C, right? Mm-hmm. So first of all, I'm gonna ask all my viewers out there to ask themselves, what's your favorite C word? But after that, no, go ahead though.
Well, so for today, I think, sorry. So for today, I think it's going to be a few C words that we're going to be using today. So it's going to be, we kind of just not freebase. That's a terrible word.
Base was last week. That would be B. We're doing C today.
We kind of came up with change because we feel like we got to address change. But it's going to be control, communication, and choices. So those are 3. I know it sounds like a lot, but
nah.
We're
here for all that shit.
Our introspective work. So a lot of things are going to be geared towards you asking yourself and doing reflections and seeing if you're ready to make change, right? So in psychology, there's different stages of change that we talk about. And so you have like your pre-contemplative stage where you're saying, okay, do I really want to change what's going on? Do I feel like I need to make change? Do I feel like my behavior or the choices or how I'm feeling or how I'm responding behavior needs to be changed. So it's kind of acknowledging, hey, there's a problem, but you're really not sure. Then you're really not sure if you're ready to make the change, right? So then you go into contemplation, which is, okay, am I confident enough to make the change? Am I ready?
Can I do this?
Can I do this? Right. And these are questions that we should really be asking ourselves. Especially for the listeners, you know, as we're going through this is helping. This is going to help you in the long run. This is so that you can be the best version of yourself and kind of go through the evolution of change within mental and emotional growth. And then you have your preparation and determination stage, which is, okay, I'm getting ready to change. I have the tools. I feel confident enough. I'm addressing these problems. I'm looking at the person in the mirror and saying, okay, you got to do better, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have your action and willpower, and that's the changing behavior. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I think people don't realize that when we go into changing behaviors, we are human and we relapse. We go back to what's normal, what's comfortable for us, right?
Yeah.
And there's this interesting aspect that I kind of understand, and I heard it, and I can't remember where I heard it, but we go back to change. We go back to who we were because we understand pain. So for somebody who navigates through pain, when we're trying to go through healing, it's uncomfortable, right? To be uncomfortable is growing, and to grow is to be uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar territory. We don't know what's going to happen on that side. So when we're dealing with pain or grief, or we're dealing with toxic behaviors, or we're dealing with a certain pattern that we've done for X amount of years, it's easy to be presented with a circumstance that's familiar to you and to revert back to what we were.
Go back into our comfort zone.
Right. It's our comfort zone, right? So I would like to encourage people that we're going to relapse, but go continue, identify it. That's part of change, right? Oh, okay. I went back to who I was and I didn't like that version of myself. So next time I'm presented with this situation, I can now execute it in a better or respond in a better way, not react to those situations, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that as we go through these ABCs, it's important to acknowledge that nobody's perfect, that we're all going to go through these stages of changes and we're going to go back and we're going to go, it's going to be a roller coaster, right? It's about, as we progress further, less and less of those behaviors that we don't want are being exhibited.
We're starting to, and that's the change right there. That's the improvement is over time. It's not, these are things I feel like, are gonna take time. It's a process, It's not gonna be just, hey, this is it. I know now, and I'm good. It's definitely a process, and I feel like anybody that's growing, that wants to grow and be a better version of themselves, that somebody that's stemming from trauma, that grew up with a lot of childhood trauma, is something that you want to do. Like, and a lot of, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people that grew up crazy, and they are great, like parents and stuff like that, and I'm sure they still dealing with their issues and stuff, but they made a conscious effort to want to be a better person and and not become what their circumstances were. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's important to recognize that the turtle wins the race. I always tell my clients that it's never the hare.
It's a marathon.
All progress is lasting progress. Right. When we set our minds to do something, it's important to be kind to ourselves, show self-compassion. It's the S and a C. But and
it's all right.
and have, well, it's, I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves on, oh, I didn't do this. And now it's a defeatist mindset, it's kind of like losing weight.
Why try? Fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
What I like about those moments though, like when you do kind of like, go back to like those old behaviors or something, is just realizing like, damn, this is something that like the old me would have done. And then like patting yourself on the back and being like, hey, at least I'm recognizing like these old patterns or these old behaviors. And then that's like for me, the first step of change is to like kind of like acknowledge when those moments are happening. Because if you don't, acknowledge when those moments are happening, then how are you ever going to change them? Like,
absolutely. Small victories. Celebrate those victories.
Small victories, right? Like, man, last year I would have punched that motherfucker when he said that, but today I was able to walk away. Like, wow,
And,
go ahead.
I was just say it's just important to understand that that how much you have changed, and as much as we get on ourselves about not doing something, I would expect the same energy for when you do accomplish something or see some of that change. You should probably give yourself, if not more, of that energy for yourself, because you're actively involved in trying to correct this shit, so you're light years away ahead of the people that are still haven't took that step. So they got, once they get in there on their own journey in their own time, once they get there, they'll understand more than than you could probably tell them.
Well, and then it's about, I feel, and I'm not sure if any of you have had these moments where you're maybe in a situation and the situation you're far removed, and then you reflecting on it or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't respond the way I used to have responded. And you're kind of like, oh, I'm growing. This is what growth looks like. I didn't lose my mind when they said something, or,
Most definitely. I've felt that plenty of times.
Totally. I've had those moments too. And it's like so refreshing. Like, wow, look at you growing, hot mama. Like you would have did that already. But it's like, look at you.
That's facts.
Right. And you know what? It's so funny because I think a lot of times this kind of goes into control. And one of the topics that we were talking about is understanding we can't control circumstances. We can only control our responses to those things. Right. So, one thing I kind of want to pose a question to, everybody listening is, what kind of controlling behavior do you have? What kind of behavior do you feel that you do that it's almost, I have to control the situation, because if I don't, then it's just going to turn out this way or that way. We kind of go into this assumption phase, right? Where we think if this doesn't turn out this exact way, then it's going to be terrible, and So I think what I'd like to start with is what control means in psychology, so that we can understand. And, you know, as we're listening to these questions or as we're asking ourselves these questions, we understand, oh, well, maybe that behavior I didn't realize was controlling is maybe a controlling behavior. So controlling in psychology is the perception that one has the ability, the resources, or opportunities to get positive outcomes or avoid negative effects through one's own actions. It is interesting because I think that many of us feel we have more control than we actually do. You know, I think controlling behavior can be in any interpersonal relationship, from a parent to child, in your relationships with your partner, or friends, work, exactly, you know, and feeling this sense and this need of control. So I'm wondering, just, you know, what are some controlling behaviors that you may have as an audience, and, you know, to you two as well.
Place.
Sure. I think I just worry a lot. You know, call it just being what I've been through in my lifestyle and stuff. So my thing is just, you know, I stress communication. You know what I mean? And maybe I stress it a little too much. But that's my thing, and I've acknowledged that, and I'm working on that, y'all, just so you know. But now, because I worry about my son, and, you know, I know what's out there and stuff like that. And he's a good kid. Like, he's not, you know what I mean? It's just, my whole thing is just like, yo, just let me know what you're doing, and go and do what you do, and check in. That's it. Yeah. But, you know, if you don't check in, I'm checking in. So, you know what I'm saying? So at the same time, I understand he's a young adult, you know, he gonna go do his stuff, and I'm learning, and like how you said, having those moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna say nothing. Go ahead, you know, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna say nothing. Yeah, I'll check in with you later or whatever and see if you're good, but I'm not gonna come into it like, you better check in, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not stressing him as much. I understand he's an adult. He's gonna come and go as he pleases and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's nice if he would check in all the time, but if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world either. And so that's my thing. I'm learning that, you know, like,
you can't control how others communicate with you.
Yeah, well, I just can't control, like, he's his own person. Like, you know, at the end of the day, he's an adult. I have to understand that, you know, he's not a child anymore. He's going to do what he wants to do, and he's going to make his own decisions. And I have to, you know what I mean? Let him do that.
Well,
you know, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You first.
No, I'm just saying that's just what it is. You feel me? And it's because, I don't know, you know, just that's been my biggest thing. And, you know, it's like, and I don't know, you know, if y'all don't got adult kids yet. So it's like, once you have an adult child, just like, it's different. You understand that you're moving out of that, you know, I'm on your ass parent role. You're moving over a little bit into that. Now I'm just like, I'm here just on a different level. You dig what I'm saying? I don't know if it's strange. It's like, you know how it is when you got to a certain age, you're like, yo, like, my parents, nah, I'm gonna do what I do. Like, you know what I'm saying? So although he's not at that stage yet in his life where he's like, yo, I'm out of here, I'm gonna move out and do what I want to do and shit like that. You know, I'm learning that I have to let him be an adult and not be, you know, super critical of where he's at all the time, and, you know, shit like that. So, you know, it's different.
Well, I think that I don't think worry. I think there's a healthy amount of worry that we all should have for our children. I think
that's our survival, like,
right? Like, so I think it becomes controlling when you're not allowing him, and, you know, he's an adult, but make his own decisions, or you're forcing him to do something that you feel is best, right? Because as parents, we think, oh, well, we know what's best for our children. We know what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. And in reality, every kid is different. Every kid is parented different. Every interaction is different.
Every upbringing is different.
Right. And so you can't treat a kid as a carbon copy of how you were raised. That's something I had to learn too. That's something I had to learn too. Because once I started understanding that some of these behaviors that I grew up, you know, learning were,
they were like, what do you call that? They were toxic behaviors or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they weren't. They're, you know, you know how people refer to generational curses and shit like that. Shit like that is once I started realizing what my effect and what I'm doing, you know, to the people around me, because you know, I mean, at one point or another, some people never learn, or some people do earlier, but you know, when you're living a certain lifestyle, you know, you really don't look at what you're doing to the people around you. You know, you're just looking at what you're doing. So, because of that, I just lost my train of thought. I was making a point about something, but you know what I'm saying? Just lost my whole train of thought. It's crazy.
We were talking about how like generational curses and how you had.
Oh yeah. So once I start, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for keeping record. You know, because your boy definitely is not. There's somebody here, bro. They're not keeping record. You know what I'm saying? Everybody here ain't keeping record. You know what I'm saying? So, but so once I started seeing that and seeing how it affected me, I started trying to actively stop and correct those behaviors, and because it's like, it's like I can't expect a different result with the same, you know, doing the same shit that obviously had me where I was at.
Right.
You know, so in my mind, I always want what's best for my child. I want him to live his own life, be happy, but I want him to have the just the best shit the best parts of me raising him that I didn't have. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because that's all I want. Is like, trying to be everything that I didn't have for you.
I think that's what every good parent tries to do, right?
Exactly.
Because not every parent is going to try to do that, but every good parent is going to want to try and provide a better life than what they got for themselves to their children, you know? You don't want them growing up with the same struggles that we had to fucking deal with. Like,
yeah. And if they did have a good life and they had a good upbringing and they want to continue that, you know, they want to pass that down. That's like, just like you pass down curses, you could pass the good stuff is what you want to pass down. You want those good memories, that good, healthy relationship with your parents and stuff, you know? So there's always turmoil. Like, you know what I mean? Now,
there's always room for improvement too. Like no relationship out there between parents and children is perfect. Like nobody's got it perfect. Everybody's dealing with something one way or another, you know?
And knowing that and being a parent and having made mistakes now, I also look at my parents and I don't really,
you give them grace.
I look at them different. Exactly. I look at them different. Like, I can't imagine the shit that I put myself through. It's like, I can't imagine what y'all went through. Y'all circumstances were different. You guys were, you know what I'm saying? First, you guys immigrated to this country. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's different. Like what y'all went through, it explains a lot about why we were so fucking wild. Our generation was fucking off the chain. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, like, and that's like I said, once again, because of that, I try to be more involved because I know having lived through that and seen all that shit, you know, so, you know, I try to be more involved in my son's life. And more than anything, I try to talk to him like straight up.
Communicate.
Yeah, like communicate with him straight up. Tell him like, this is what it is. Like, I never glorify my situation to him or be like, I was in there knocking motherfuckers' ass out, or none of this shit that I've been through in previous times. I always tell them the real, you know, and I tell them the consequences. I'm like, when I try to use shit as teachable moments, examples. So whenever something happens, whether it's good or bad, if I could give him an example, you know, and break it down to him, you know, and not only that, but even with myself, when he sees me struggling with something and he asks me like, what's going on? It's like, I could tell him, it's like, because of my shit, what I got going on, certain things I can't do. You dig what I'm saying?
Ability.
Yeah. So I tell him, you know, I have to tell him that because no one really talked to me like that about that. And I seen how much, first of all, I see how much proper communication will take you and how healthier it is overall when you're interacting with people. But also, you know, just for my own benefit and for me to be a better person, I had to I had to understand what I needed and also what I need to give him. Did that make sense?
Yes. And what I really love.
All right, I'm not crazy then. Oh, at least about this, right?
Yeah, not about this.
I think what I really love also is the fact that we're placing value on emotional well-being and mental well-being over monetary gains. I think so many of us have grown up with this, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to provide and have a better life than you did, but I think that there's so much more value if I can pour into you knowledge, if I can pour into you emotion, so you're not having to repair this 30 years later and listening to a podcast and asking yourself, do I have controlling behavior? Do I need to make changes in my life? Because you're emotionally, not saying that nobody goes through trauma and nobody deals with those type of things, because absolutely things are out of our control and we deal with life, right? But it's important to know that addressing things when it happens, don't hold on to it, and I want to say specifically for men or for the male gender, not addressing emotions is very common. It's looked as weak. It's looked as something that men shouldn't do. They shouldn't know how they're feeling. They should just be.
I'm gonna be okay.
What's the word to say for that?
Meanwhile, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just keep repressing all these feelings, and I'm gonna be okay. Like, I mean, I look at it like,
and that's a controlling behavior as well.
Yeah,
over yourself, huh?
Yes, it's repressing. I have to control this because if I let this out, how am I going to be viewed?
I care. I'm an alpha male, but I care what people think about me, so I'm not gonna. You know what I mean?
That part.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm gonna tell you like this, like, we're gonna get tribal and shit. The men, the alpha men leaders and of the tribes and whatnot, they would always receive counsel, and it'd usually be from an elder, somebody with a lot of life experience, somebody that's seen what they've seen and had similar paths to where they're going and whatnot. So, somewhere along the line, I feel like I said, it's just overall just to make shit corny and make help spread chaos, because I'm a conspiracy theorist or whatever. But it's like to that whole I guess you could say, men can't deal with their emotions type shit, or men shouldn't address them. It's like just another form of controlling itself. By like how you were saying, personally controlling it, but like, I mean, like overall in society, by perpetuating that type of talk, it just, it's another form of control. It's like, it's not letting you be your best person and who you are and who you're intended to be, like, I don't know. You gotta have some growth. You gotta acknowledge, and like we saying, it's like acknowledging what, I got issues. Nobody seems perfect. We all got issues we're working on. Some people are maybe more refined though. Maybe some people, maybe have had, cause some people, I've known people that are younger, they're just wise beyond their years, you know what I mean? And see things differently. So, we're all on different levels of this journey of and whatnot. So we can't, compare it all.
It all starts inside our own home though, too, like even though there's that narrative out there that men can't feel their feelings, and that's like widely known, in today's culture, like just by changing the dynamics in our own home, then we're letting our children kind of experience something else that we didn't get to experience before. Like, because before it would never start in the home. I feel like there would never be much change in the home. It'd always be like, well, what can the city do for us? Or what can the schools do for us? But now we're starting to look at like, what can I do for my own home, inside my own home? Like, how can I make changes from the inside out? Like, and that's one of them, like just spreading that awareness within your home, because that like you do have a young man in your home, like, and just letting him know like it's okay to feel your feelings, and like and to display them yourself, because when you display your feelings and when you show him that it's cool to be vulnerable, then it's going to encourage him to do the same.
Well, there's this and I'm glad that you said that, because it reminded me of and it goes into communication as well. Expressing your feelings is communicating, right? So for instance, if my son is feeling away and he's like, I'm just upset. Why are you upset? I need you to now go inside and say, well, why am I, now you're challenging yourself. You're asking yourself, why am I upset about this? Right. And I don't know isn't an answer in my household. So what's going on? What is, let's walk through this. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times parents don't want to put in that work. And I think it's a lot, because that's a lot. It's draining for the parent.
Oh yeah, it is.
Trying to, hey, and that's with respects to age. You know, I'm not expecting a 3-year-old to say, you know, I'm upset. Why? Because I wanted to start that conversation
though. You know,
right.
When they are 6 or 7 years old, they can remember like, oh, you know, I've been looking in as to why I feel this way since before. Like maybe even before they can have that concept of, well, I'm feeling mad because I can't have the candy. At least you're planting that seed in their brains of, okay, well now let me look at why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, even though I can't really, you know, explain right now. Like maybe in a couple years or in 3 days or something, you know, I might be able to.
Well, that goes into also when we, you know, as parents, when we punish, it's important that we discipline our children. I don't care what anybody says.
Facts.
There's always a way to discipline your child. Some people whoop their children. All of
them. All of them. Y'all getting y'all ass whipped today for this shit. Y'all.
I think every child is different. Some children don't respond to that. Some children do.
Yeah.
So what's important about discipline is going back and saying, this is why.
Yeah.
And this is you being there. There's positive controls too, right? There's like, okay, I know I'm about to lose my mind. I probably shouldn't whoop you or put my hands on you because I'm so upset right now that I might hurt you, right? That's a control. Like, let me tailor back how I'm feeling and let me go redirect my attention somewhere else.
Come back.
What's important in relationships, because ruptures are bound to happen, are repairs. I'm letting you know, I'm coming to you to say, hey, you're in trouble because of this. So now there's a lot of times we feel as parents, we shouldn't explain ourselves. And I think that's wrong. I think we should to an extent, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you're punishing your child and maybe they don't know why they're in trouble, you know, you're not listening to me. And so there are consequences to our actions, right? There are things, another C word, you know, so
exactly.
It's the choices we make. One. See, this is all kind of going together. The choices we make have good or bad consequences.
Of course.
So, you know, if you don't teach, I tell my son all the time, a person held unaccountable for their actions is a dangerous person.
Mm-hmm.
And so you
feel like they could do anything.
Exactly. You feel invincible. And that's why you have these kids and people just doing crazy stuff because nobody's ever held them accountable and said, this is why these are these consequences, you know, and I would encourage parents to have punishments that are consistent and meet the crime. You know, if something minuscule shouldn't deserve a month-long punishment, right? Like, it's
you didn't pick up the table or something. You know?
You didn't take out the trash, so now you can't play the video games for a month. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just an example. It's you know, give our children some grace too. They're kids, you know. Taking out trash isn't fun for anybody. I don't care who you are, the kid or the adult. A lot of times
too, parents disciplining children for having emotions, and that gets me. I'm like, you get mad. Does anybody fucking yell at you when you're mad and like you're having a hard time? Like, why don't you just let them have their emotions and, you know, check in with them when they're done? Like, you don't want somebody coming at you sideways when you're upset or you're not in the right headspace. So how are you going to do that to your kid or expect a child to sort out their feelings in an appropriate manner when they're still hella young? I'm hella grown and I still don't know how to like handle my emotions appropriately all the time. How am I going to expect a 3-year-old to do who's being raised by me? Like,
that's a control.
Damn sense. Yeah.
That's control. How are you feeling these emotions? I can't feel them. So it's a projection almost, right? So I don't want you to feel these emotions. So I want you to feel them. Because I don't know how to handle my own emotions. And so it's so much bigger than I think people even realize, you know, everything is a ripple effect. You know, it's like the rock in the pond. There's everything that you do affects somewhere in your life, somehow, in some way. And, you know, there are some people who are so controlling that, I've witnessed it in relationships or even driving. I don't trust you driving. I trust my driving skills. So that's a control, right?
Yeah.
So
I know people like
saw
that
those
too.
eyes. I saw those eyes.
Because I was hella thinking to myself, like, I'm not very controlling. Like, I'm hella of a go with the flow person. But when you said that, I'm definitely not comfortable with other people driving. Like, nobody, not even my husband, not even my mom. Like,
yeah, I know a couple people like that too.
Okay, so what about planning a party? Are you the one that's like, I got to do all of this stuff, or do you let other people?
I like to show up and just be like, "What's good?"
Your stuff,
that's why I say.
No, you're throwing a party though. Like,
and if I'm throwing the party, I still don't give a fuck. Like, what's good? Like, usually at my parties, I'm like, let me put a bowl of chips out and a couple balloons is good to go. Like, if somebody else wants to blow up the balloons and tie them up how they want, like, go for it. I don't mind.
So
like,
you're open. Basically, you're open to somebody helping you. Is what we're saying. Like,
I'm hella open. I think the more control that I got is as far as my life goes, and so that's when driving comes in. Is somebody's in control of my life now, and I'm not cool with that. Like, so that's where my control issues happen, is from outside people. Like, I don't like going to like clubs and stuff because I can't control what's going to happen there. Like, that's my problem.
I mean, but there's like I said, their control is not. Let me just make some control is not always bad, right? Like, we should know when to dial back. We should know when to, like, okay, I need to stop, eating so many chips. So I'm gonna control is like, okay, that's also discipline too.
Yeah.
But that was just an example. But one thing I don't think people realize is we have blind trust when we drive, though. We can't control if somebody hits us. We can't control if another car decides to go when it's a red light, or,
We're all literally relying on each other to make sure we all make it home, whether you know this person or not.
Yes. So I think in a lot of cases, control is so, it can be looked at objectively, but it's really subjective to your circumstance and like where you are in that very moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more we try to, and I think this is, kind of going into the next question that I kind of wanted to pose towards everybody is, when you have lack of control, when you realized, oh, I don't have this control that I thought I did. We'll say in relationships, your partner does something that it was out of your box, I guess you can say. Does it give you
partner
anxiety?
better not be doing nothing out of her box? Also,
Okay, let me give you an example. I know couples who share locations, right? We talked about this last one. So sharing locations. So let's say that they stop sharing their location or whatever happened. That's out of control, right? Because sharing locations, in my opinion, with your person, everybody has their own way reasoning, but I don't. You should trust. Before that, we had to just trust what people were saying. So. Does it give you anxiety to not have control? So when you're a passenger, do you get anxiety, Hot Mama? Do you feel like, oh my gosh,
this motherfucker's driving too fast?
Yeah. Are you that mom that's like 2 miles over the speed limit and you're like, oh my gosh, slow down?
Yeah, no, I definitely have had to like learn to take deep breaths and like focus on other things while my husband is driving. Yeah. Or like usually just my husband. Like usually I try to control him the most while I'm a passenger. Because like my mom ain't nobody controlling that bitch. Like she's wild. She gonna do what she wants.
You can't tell your mama nothing. Yeah.
No, I can tell. And so I felt like I've had to like really focus on taking deep breaths, and like it's gone over time, but still till this day, like is definitely something that that's hard for me. It gives me a lot of anxiety, like thinking about going on road trips with him. I'm like, nah, I'll drive. I got you. Like, don't trip. I got it, baby. You relax.
Fucking Hot Mama the trucker. She's like, I'll drive this whole 8 hours by myself. This is nothing.
Drove all the way 10 hours, no problem. Watch me go. Happily. But when other people do it, I'm not so happy.
And you know what's saying about control? Like I get that when you're talking about like in a positive sense, because yeah, like even for me, it's like I know that I where I should be and where I shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. I don't because unfortunately because of where I've been in my my criminal history, I can't be out here, going to certain places where it's wild and you don't know what could happen. It's like I know I could control myself. Mm-hmm. I know I'm not going to do nothing out of pocket. I'm not going anywhere with no ill intention, but I can't control what other people do. I can't control the drunk motherfucker that might want to put his hands on people for no reason, and then, so I very much exercise a lot of control over how I move. And it's because of that also, because also I can't put myself in a dangerous situation. It's like, yo, I'm not,
So when you are in those positions, do you get anxiety? So like just unpredictable. And I know we've talked about,
unfortunately for me, I'm used to all that already. So like, even when people are like, I can't smoke weed, it gives me anxiety. I'm like, yo, that's what it's been doing. I've been doing that. I was like, oh shit. I was like, this shit ain't nothing now. I'm like, it's whatever. I thought that just came with the territory. I thought, hey, first we're gonna be lit. Then we're gonna start getting paranoid as fuck. Okay. So to me, I was like, nah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm used to that, and I don't get anxiety. What I do get is, well, I mean, I guess you could consider it be anxiety, but I don't feel like, I just am more on alert. So I am more observant, even more than normally. I'm very much plotting my where I'm at, my space. Like, for instance, I'm like, okay, so I'm here, who's around me, what's what, analyzing the situation, analyzing how, just being observant, watching everybody. If I see some shit that ain't got nothing to do with me cracking off, I'm out of here. You feel me?
It makes me think though that while I'm like in the passenger seat taking these deep breaths and stuff, like I have become more aware of my behavior once my children were in the back seat, because now I'm displaying to my daughter how to react in these stressful situations or things like that. And so I feel like before I had children, it was like I was always like a backseat driver, right? And then now I'm kind of like trying to show her, like trying to model for her how to behave. And like, I don't want her to be all anxious or, with other people driving. Like, I want her to feel comfortable and trust people and things. And so I've like tried to like, I wonder how, Blaze, how you would react in a situation like if your kid was nearby too. Like, would you still be like alert and stuff? Or
yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's another thing. I'm always alert. I'm always watching. I'm always paying attention, and that's just something that's built into me because of my circumstances. Like I said, I was like, look, I'm not out here doing anything stupid. You know what I mean? I'm taking care of my family, and I'm aspiring to have dreams that are not involving having to deal with consequences that I don't want to deal with. So I stick to my own. I do my shit. So as I move around in this life, I have to understand that what one regular average person might just get a slap on the wrist, they could throw me back in prison for however long they see fit. I, make sure that I move accordingly wherever I'm at. So it's not, and I tell my son, I teach him about awareness, and it's not because I feel like he has to live like that as well, but I feel like everybody should have a certain level of awareness, and wherever you go, wherever you step, you're putting yourself in position, especially women. Unfortunately, we had to say that, but wherever you go, you have to, analyze and assess what is going on and how I'm going to deal with it, and if this is something that I should be around and a part of,
It is about being aware, and I think one thing that is also super important to identify is that control stems from behaviors or lack of behaviors, maybe as a child living in a chaotic household, growing up in chaos, growing up with extreme trauma. When we become adults, we have that sense of need to control, right? So you have certain people who can go into a room and can identify the environment, just they're empathetic, right? So they can feel okay, and then they learn how to adapt to that, which is a control. So I know if I can adapt to this circumstance, it's a control. And then, you even have people who don't have a certain amount of control maybe in their home. So they go to work, and what do? They micromanage, or they search for external factors to control. So I think that it's also important to recognize that controlling behaviors typically stem from being in an environment that was uncontrollable, unpredictable, right? Children, we need predictability, we need consistency.
Stability.
Stability. And so when we have that, I don't know how my mom is going to respond to this because she responds different every time. So when they get older, that's where controlling behavior may step into play, right? So we have to even be consistent. And you know, there's this theme, it's like the ABCs, where it's all puzzling together, you know, accountability and our behaviors and how we respond. Control is not always a bad thing, you know, but when we are searching for things to control, then it becomes a problem, right? Yeah. So I then another question for, you know,
I must control everything.
Right. Well, what does lack of control look like for you? So when you don't have control, right, what is that response, right? Do we respond negatively? Lack of control, just to give some context, and is responding irrationally.
I'm out of control.
Well, responding irrationally, right? When we're not able to contain our emotions, say something affects us in such a way that we're not even able to control our emotions. That's when we're not responding accordingly to the situation, right? So we're so overwhelmed because we don't have control, lack of boundaries, lack of different necessities of mental functioning that we have. It causes our lack of control, where we spiral, and then we can kind of go into something that's called all or nothing mindset. This is the worst thing, or a spiraling, you know, thinking of the worst things that could possibly ever happen, and probably not likely, but still we kind of go into this mental spiral, and that's losing control as well, right? So what does it look like when we have gone down that spiraling point? How do we come back from that? How do we kind of bring ourselves into a present control? We're like, okay, that is something I cannot control. What can I control right now in this moment? And these are questions that, you know, in any given circumstances. Road rage. Oh, geez, I hear about this all the time. I used to have bad road rage. But I will tell you, you cannot control that person in front of you, right? And I know this is something California, I have learned that Bay Area specifically, we're all defensive drivers because you just never know.
It's a competition.
It really is.
We're trying to get there before you. I don't care if it's to the stoplight.
Right. God forbid you let me merge on the highway, right?
Exactly. Like, no, you can't get on. What the fuck? I'm here. Like, don't even make no sense.
So, but I think it's recognizing so that's a control aspect in ourselves, right? When we react to that and we're losing our mind, some people are getting shot for it. Really, in reality, can we control that, right? So it's identifying me working myself up, this emotional, now your whole day is ruined. Now you're going into work or you're going to the next place, like, oh, this person had cut me off and F them and their mama. And
how's it carrying over to the next part of your life?
Exactly. So now you've allowed this one circumstance to affect your entire day, right? Without regard to, it just happens. That's probably you're not the first person or the last person it will happen to. You'll probably do it to someone else because that's human nature. So we get mad at someone else for doing something and then go and do the same thing. But then you rationalize, right? Then we rationalize in our head that, oh, well, I had to get somewhere really quickly, so I just had to do that. And we never put ourselves in their shoes, and that could have been their situation. They may have had an emergency, right? So I think that for everybody listening, just knowing what lack of control looks like for you, and it's something just that simple, letting a temporary, very temporary, short circumstance allow you to unregulate all of your emotions and
snap.
Yes. And for what? Really, what can we do about it? Yeah. You know, is it really that serious? And I think that, so to kind of wrap up control, I think it's just identifying and having a balance and knowing when you have actual control over a circumstance and it's
when you don't.
And when you don't, and how to respond to those, right? Because our behaviors are going to change in different circumstances.
And more importantly, being honest with ourselves and understanding that, you know, as well as everybody else, there's no, as much as you like to see it in TV and whatever, that nobody's perfect. Mm-hmm. So understand that and try to give other people the grace that you want, you know? Absolutely. So that's dope. What else you got for us?
So then we're going to roll into communication, and we're going to...
Orale, it's my favorite topic, Holmes.
Yeah. Well, I think people have this conception that because they say something or they just say how they feel or they don't say something that's healthy communication. So me withholding what I'm feeling, or for whatever reason you're doing that and not communicating well with that person. What is communication well? So, to ask yourself a question is, do I communicate well? And if I do communicate well, how do I communicate? And these are, again, posing questions to the audience. And then what effective communication look like for you? When do you feel, if you're trying to say something, I know a lot of people like to be mind readers, and think that's what that person is thinking. So they don't communicate because they assume,
hell no.
right?
Say it.
And rather than
tell me what the fuck is wrong with you.
Like, I don't even know what's wrong with me. No.
Okay, at least I know that. That's good enough for me. It's like, okay, you're just going through it. You're having one of your days. You're blue. Okay, I get it.
Well, then there's two types of communication as well. There's nonverbal communication and verbal communication. And I think both are very important to understand that when you're communicating, it's also to comprehend. I can talk to a wall and get the same response. If they're not understanding what I'm saying, there's no point in it. Obviously, the way that I'm communicating is not effectively, and everybody receives information differently.
That's what
One thing
is effective communication, right? Because there's communicating and there's like effective communication. Because if it's not being effective, then what's the point of it? Like,
well, there's active listening. So one thing that I love to do is especially when I talk to clients, they'll tell me something and I'll in return say, okay, so this is what I'm hearing you say. Is this accurate? Right. And this is something you can do in your everyday life, because we may interpret it completely different. And there are times where a client may be like, no, that's not what I was like. Oh, can you explain it to me maybe in a different way so I understand? I'm not understanding what you're saying then. So I think then. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Then if you didn't understand, then it wouldn't be effective communication. It would just be communicating.
Exactly. So I would say that when you are communicating with someone, and sometimes people don't want to hear what you have to say, and that's accepting the control that they don't have to listen. And one thing that I talk about often, so there's a theory, it's called dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's all about interpersonal relationships and how to have, I say, constructive conflict with people, communicating what you need to communicate with facts, not feelings, because feelings fluctuate, right? So if we're communicating and I have an issue, say I have an issue with whoever, and I'm trying to explain to them, and this is sometimes in arguments, and I'm bringing this up because a lot of times effective communication is more... is not as prominent when we're in conflict with others, because we just want to say what we have to say. And effective communication is also listening to what the other person has to say. And a lot of times in disagreements or arguments, what will happen is we'll be mad at each other, and I'm coming to you with an issue. Let's say we live together, hot mama, and you don't wash the dishes every night before bed.
Scumbag.
And it's really bothering me. And I'm like, why is she not washing the dishes? This is like, and I've said something and eventually, or I haven't said something, sorry. And eventually I'm like, hey, can we talk? And I come to you and I'm like, I really appreciate, this is also, as a disclaimer, presentation. I'm not going to come at her crazy, because that's not going to get anything solved.
That's not effective communicating.
It's not effectively communicating, right? Yeah. So I'm going to say, hey, I would really appreciate if you do the dishes before you go to bed, before we go to bed, so that we can wake up to a clean kitchen. And
because they stink. Oh, no,
and so there's a couple responses. She could say, okay. Or sometimes our ego gets in the way and now we feel offended because now it's kind of being called out in a way on our flaw.
How dare you tell me that I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing?
Exactly. How dare you tell me something wrong, right? This is setting boundaries. So a lot of times what people do in arguments is, well, you didn't do the dishes the other day and I didn't say anything. Or I want you to do the laundry. And that is not effective.
Oh.
Staying on task is effective, right? So I have a 3-time rule. So if I'm saying, okay, I hear what you're saying, but we're not talking about that. This is kind of bringing it back. I hear what you're saying, and we can talk about laundry another day, or we can talk about that another time. But
talking about this right now.
We're talking about this. This is being direct also. And a lot of people do not like direct conversation. I've noticed a trend of passive aggressiveness, and a lot of people who like to beat around the bush with a lot of things. And in this example, she keeps bringing that up 3 times. By the 3rd time, if I'm like, okay, we're not talking about that, we're going to go back, like, this is what we're talking about, I will then remove myself from the conversation. This is something I personally do, but this is not going anywhere. So maybe we'll talk about this another time.
Later.
Right now, I'm going to walk away. I'm letting you know I'm walking away and I'm not engaging in this conversation anymore, right? In those circumstances, a lot of times the person doesn't get to that 3-time rule because they allow their lack of control over the situation to overwhelm their emotions, and they get upset. And then they start trailing into this whole argument, and you forget the original reason why you were communicating this need with this person, or this issue or this conflict with this person. So when you're in your everyday life and you're communicating with others, it really, one, is this going to think about what you want to say, and don't just come on and just say, you know what, because then we get lost in our words, right? And so if we think, okay, this is how I want to communicate, even something, and it sounds crazy, but I hate the word crazy, but I'll say it in this context. To write a script down to present something to someone is not a bad thing. These are the points that I want to hit. This is how I want to discuss it. It helps you stay on task, and it helps communication, especially for those who are listening who have issues communicating. Writing those things down, writing your points down before going into a disagreement or going into an issue or a problem with someone is going to be really helpful for you to stay on task. And it's going to remind you why you're even presenting this, right? Because we can go trailing off. And it's going to keep you focused on what is the goal of this, right? What is the goal of this conversation? What is the goal of this? And that's moving with intention. That's moving with an end goal in mind.
Yeah, we're trying to achieve something at the end of this.
Right.
I feel like there's hella factors that will go into like effective communication, like how you mentioned, like not coming in hot, right? So you want to come in with a level attitude, like in a good mood. You don't want to talk about something hard when you're already upset. Like, and then like for me, I think like the proximity is important. Like you don't want to be in another room or across the room or something trying to talk about something that's really important to you. You want to be within close proximity to somebody, like
let me sit in front of you, like
you don't want to be standing while they're sitting down, like you're talking down onto them. Like there's hella factors I feel like that can go into like effective communicating. Like you can't just walk up to somebody and be like, hey, yo, this is my problem. Like there's like a whole, and writing it down, I feel like is one of like a really good tip to give to people who aren't really good at communicating or don't feel, you know, because when you get mad and you're talking about something that's really passionate to you, you know, you often forget what really brought you there or those points that you were thinking of and things. And I don't know, that was a really good tip that you put out there.
Well, and people like to disregard other people in a lot of ways. So to you, it may not be a big deal, but to me it is, and vice versa. So it's about having that common respect. And so there's actually a technique, it's called Dear Man. It's part of DBT. And so you have describing. So that's the D is for describing. And you go into describing facts, not feelings. So this is, the dishes aren't done. And when you do that, you also, the E is expressing. So I feel this way because it's not, you make me feel this way. It's, these are the facts. The dishes aren't done at night.
And this bothers me.
It really bothers me. I would appreciate if the dishes are done.
You like do them yourself then.
And then you have
just
we fighting then. Then all the ghetto finna come out now. Like, hold on, man. I done talked to you. I came at you square as fuck.
Like, if you don't like it, then you do it.
You got me fucked up.
But so there's control, right? So then that's a choice. That's another one today. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but these aren't my dishes, right? So that's asserting yourself, right? Yeah. And so that's the A. And then those three are pretty important because a lot of times people will go into describing and then they'll go into expression, and it's like, well, you da 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 da, and there's no I statement. So I feel like this is not
ability for your own feelings, bro.
yes. And so
we're learning.
So then you have reinforced, right? So then you kind of, okay, this is why I'm saying this. Because it will make the house cleaner. It will make everything, it will feel cleaner. We don't have to worry about it in the morning, right? And the M, hold on, I have to think of the M.
Motherfucker.
I'm just get your motherfucking ass up and clean these fucking dishes.
I'm sorry, Britt. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
We're giving her time to remember while we talk.
Yeah, I know you are.
Go
but
get your motherfucking ass up. Get these motherfucking. I'm turning to Samuel L. Jackson right now. Like, hold on. Like,
so it's mindful. That's what it is. You're being mindful. Mindful of
the other M word.
That means not getting sidetracked. So, right, that's what we talked about, not getting sidetracked in the conversation. Well, I'm not about to do those dishes. You can do them. That sidetrack would be, hold up. And then, and now we're talking about something different. Now we're talking about how you came at me rather than us talking about the goal of getting done, right?
How can we make this happen?
Yes. So, and then you have appearing confident. That's the A. So a lot of times people go into circumstances where they are not confident at all. They're nervous. They don't have good communication skills. Mm-hmm. And that's why writing this down as a script down is very helpful, right? Even using the dear man, D for describe, the E for express, the A for assert, R is for reinforce, M is for mindfulness, and then A is appear and confident. Don't look down, don't stammer. It doesn't mean you have to feel, it says appear. Don't have to be, but appear confident, right? Yeah. So if I'm coming at you and I'm super nervous, but I'm looking at you in your eyes and I'm talking to you direct, that doesn't mean that's how I'm feeling, but you're perceiving that, right? Mm. And then your N is negotiate. And I think that negotiation, it actually is more of a tool used to how we both can benefit from this, right? So negotiate, you know what, how about I do the dishes every Tuesday and Thursday? We both can win. Everybody wins. Everybody's happy, right? And that just depends on the dynamic of the relationship. Why are you laughing?
Because I got jokes and I'm just holding them to myself. Because I'm taking this totally seriously. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just like.
I'm going to need that dear man text.
I was going to say, for real, you got to write that down for me. You know what I mean?
That's really good. That's good information right there.
That's good. Well, it's good, effective communicating. That's how you effectively communicate without making anybody feel away, without making anybody not feel like their feelings are being respected, and at the same time letting it be known that you desire the same. I want to be heard. I think that's my biggest problem when I would have communication issues with somebody. It would just be like, I don't feel like I'm getting heard. It's like, look, I'm all about the compromise. I'm all about helping each other in which way is possible. But I'm also about trying to keep it as fair as possible. Mm-hmm. If we're gonna compromise, let's just keep it fair. That doesn't mean I won't go above and beyond what I'm supposed to do. Anyways, that just means, at the very least, I'm here for all parties to win. I want it to be as better as we can now. When communication, I don't feel like I'm being heard, then just it's just like, fuck it. Then I got.
That's why you have the 3-time rule.
Yeah.
And then you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Actively listening, I feel like might be really beneficial for you, right? So you say your spiel of what you're feeling, and then like.
Sorry.
Hi, how's it going? I'm just kidding.
Say, who's the culprit? Who did that? That's my control right now. I'm start flaring out. No,
but no, I feel like that could be helpful for you, right? Like,
and
then people come back to you and be like, they'll just be like, oh, like, I heard this coming from you. Like, is that what you said? And then you'd be like, nah, that's not what the fuck I said. Or you'd be like, yeah, that's what I said.
So now that Britt's gone, welcome to the comedy hour. You know what I'm saying?
Can I tell you my favorite
damn it. What's your favorite C word?
Guys.
I was going to say coochie, but yeah, you know what? That's cool too. You know what I mean?
It's like even worse. I feel like it makes people feel so uncomfortable.
Hey, cunt is a fucking great word. You know that because it's not a gender specific word. You know what I mean?
Anybody
It's really,
can be a cunt.
You can be a fucking cunt. Yeah, no, I love that word. That's a great word, actually. I don't know why it's not in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, she's back.
I hate that word.
She could hear us. You know that, right? You know that. You really thought that she wasn't.
I thought she was gone.
No.
No, I have to go here in a minute. That's all. Sorry.
Okay, well, we could wrap it up because I feel like.
Well, I do want to end with this, and
yeah, give them something for the people. Give them some hope.
Talked about choices, right? And I know that there are a few things that I want to remind people is we all have choices. We all have choices on how to respond, and even if we don't feel like we have a choice, we have a choice, right? We have a choice to walk away. 3-time rule. If it's not working out, be consistent, come back to the conversation. That's where boundaries are set. If something's bothering you and we don't say it, we're emotionally imprisoning ourselves. Literally, when we're not able to express ourselves, we imprison ourselves. So understanding you have a choice. Not everybody may not like that choice, but stick to what you feel is right. So when you are dealing with interpersonal relationships and and it means something to you, effective communication is so important for a relationship to grow. And it's also important for your mental and emotional well-being. So having a choice, knowing you have a choice is I feel something that, and this is something I've dealt with. There are times in my life, and this is like a control thing. But I felt like I didn't have a choice in certain situations, and I did. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but we imprison ourselves in a certain mindset, and we don't know what to do for the next step, whatever change step that might be. And when you feel like you've reached a point in your life where it's time to make a choice to change for the better, make that choice, make that decision, because it's only going to benefit you, right? And everybody around you. And change will also reveal a lot of people's intentions and true colors to you as well, and how they influence you. And you can't effectively change around people like that crabs in a barrel. Who refuse to change and who refuse to support your change, right? Yeah. So you have a lot of people, for instance, and I say, I spend a lot of time in the gym, so this is kind of why I refer to this. When you want to go on a weight loss journey or whatever, and you're at a party, it's like, oh, you're too good to eat. Oh, you're too good. Oh, you don't want, I'm vegan. So I get it all. I used to get it all the time. Oh, you don't want fish, or you don't want, no, I'm okay. Oh, you're too good to eat with us. And it's kind of like at a point where you're like, how are my decisions affecting you in any way? Yeah. I'm giving more food to y'all if you want to be real about it, you know? So I think it's important to remember and be around people who support your choice for change and who are willing to be there for you through the process, because it's going to be relapse. And people are always quick to remind you of who you were, not who you are or who you are becoming.
That shit right there. That part right there. You know what I mean? That's dope. That's very dope. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time out, you know, to give us this bonus episode. This is Known by Podcast, episode 125. This is season 4, The Process. And it's so fitting that you're here because you are helping us a lot and helping other people with their processes, whatever it might be, just by it. Knowledge is everything. So even if you're just a natural and you got it all figured out, I mean, it's good to know these things because it's also good to know how other people function and how they feel, and that helps overall. Everybody's just, you know, just way of life, period. You know, a lot of people don't care. Yeah, exactly. Everybody's going through something. It's not the social media. Everything ain't perfect. Even those people that you see on there, they have their issues and their own struggles and their own demons and things that they're going through. The point is that, are you working on yours? Mm-hmm. Are you stepping in the right direction to make yourself better, or are you being complacent and just thinking that this is all that there is and that's it ever will be? You know, I know a lot of friends, they don't have that mindset, and they're just, you know, been through a lot of shit and just don't have that mindset about healing or becoming better. It's just like, whatever, this is just how it's going to be. I don't care. Mm-hmm. You know? And so it's like, you know, what kind of choices are y'all making? With that being said, though, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Britt, they can't find you. Actually, yeah, you could tell them where they could find you, which is right here on the podcast. Yeah, here we go. Okay, Hot Mama, what you got for me?
Follow my tie-dyed page on Instagram, totally period tie-dyed period designs, and then go and listen and follow the podcast, Love Fix period XX on Instagram.
There you go. And as for me, you already know, you can't follow me. You can follow the fucking account, and it's ran by an administrator. So I do see it, but I don't see it like that. It is brought to my attention. So if you're looking for me, I'm a mystery. Sometimes I tag myself, sometimes I don't. But you could go ahead and follow on Instagram at no_invite_podcast. You could also go to all your favorite podcasting platforms. Type in No Invite Podcast. We are there. And if we're not there, you can ask for us. Of course, also you could go to the YouTube channel. That helps us out a lot. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at RiBirth Media Films. It's RiBirth. That is the only place that you could get the visual for these podcasts. So if you're like just jumping in the game and listening to us and you want to know who the fuck said that stupid shit, which is probably 9 times out of 10 me, you could go on there and you could get a visual and be like, okay, this is the person that I hate now. But with that being said, I hope y'all have a blessed rest of your weekend, and we are out of here.
Bye.